So I see people are logging on, and we're going to just get started here. And so
All right.
what's our topic? What are we talking about?
So today we're essentially getting into the topic of responsibility. Looking at the word responsibility seems to be the ability to respond. And it seems in today's climate, people always want to put the onus of responsibility on someone else. Like when things go good, we always want to take full 100% credit for it. When things seem not to go as we expected, then it's always somebody else's fault. But really, we're in control of both ends of the outcome. And so, in light of what you said earlier about man's responsibility to be sovereignly responsible, could you unpack that a little bit more, sovereign responsibility?
Well, yeah, but just before we get to that, I mean, what about responsibility? You know, see, people have to be alive to be responsible.
Yes, sir.
You know, responsible, the ability to respond.
Yes.
Well, that's a characteristic of life. So what about a person that's dead? How could a dead person be responsible for anything?
Right.
So they don't have any choice but to blame somebody who's alive for whatever's going on, because they know they didn't cause anything to happen.
Right.
You know. Now, of course, we're not talking about people who would be physically dead. That would be ridiculous. But what we're dealing with is a situation of mental death and slavery. Not just black people either. I mean, we're talking about most of the people on this planet.
Right.
They're under some kind of mental slavery that produces a dead spot in their mentality that makes them irresponsible.
Yes, sir.
And so in those areas where they are irresponsible or unable to be responsive, they almost have no choice but to blame somebody else.
Yes, sir.
So I think the first thing to do is to see if we can bring about a mental resurrection.
Yes, sir.
Of course, that's the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So let me just make a little bit of commentary on that, because see, where are we with that? He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I mean, he had informed us of a diagnosis. He told us we had a slave's mentality. And of course, that was good information for us to receive, a little disheartening perhaps.
Right.
But we didn't actually get the treatment for it.
Yes, sir.
See, just the knowledge of the diagnosis or the knowledge of the disease that you have isn't the treatment for the disease. So we never actually got a treatment for the mental slavery that afflicts us.
Okay.
Now, in part, the mental clearing that takes place in Dianetics and Scientology is a partial answer to that.
Right.
But then the way Dianetics and Scientology is geared, it wasn't specifically geared to handle the group engram of black people.
Wow.
So that's our responsibility to sort of devise that ourselves,
Right.
to help ourselves. But so anyhow, now we can get to the sovereign responsibility. You see, so then when a person becomes completely alive and awake and aware and able,
Right.
then they can exercise sovereign responsibility or sovereign accountability. That you can hold me accountable for my life. You can hold me accountable for what I do.
That's
you can
right.
hold me accountable for what I say. But when you're a slave, you can't be held accountable for anything.
Right. Yes, sir. Right on. Right on. So you've been our mentor. For the past 10 years now. We walked into your clinic one day and we wanted to bring the Power Study Group back to the Howard University campus some 10 years ago. And I mean, just to know you, every time we come over here, every time in your presence, I feel like my IQ goes up a few points on the scale. And so we always admired you being like just a beacon of knowledge. And
I deny all of that.
Oh gosh, yes sir.
He's making all that up.
Oh gosh, but just like your command of information, if you don't know, you know how to find it out, and even like you're able to synthesize our thoughts, so us to all be able to think together to come up with a new solution. And it seems like we're in a great time. I mean, you can pretty much pull up any answer to your questions on the internet. Where you can take free college courses.
Yeah.
There's so much at our hands right now. It's like a great time to be alive. but other people aren't really taking responsibility.
Yeah, they're
for
really
their
dumb. They're
education.
still paying for education when it's free nowadays. That's
Yes, sir.
dumb as hell. And they go in debt
Right.
and then complain because they have a student debt when you could get a degree from MIT online
That's
for free.
right. That's
I
right.
think you have to pay for the examination, but
Right.
you know, you can get the information for free. So what are you paying for it for?
Right. Still a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, just people just crazy.
So like,
And then the other way, a route of knowledge that you were actually getting to, talking about the Power Study Group at Howard
Yes, sir.
University, is you actually gain knowledge just from talking to other people. Well, we live in an age of technology where the technology does the talking. And you better not talk up above the TV set.
wow.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I mean, if somebody's show is on, you better shut up. So we have generations coming up, they never learn how to talk. They never learn how to tell stories. You know, the television is always talking. The cell phone screen or the iPad, that's what's doing all of the communicating.
Right.
You see, so we end up with a generation of people who are almost illiterate,
Wow.
almost mute when it comes to the ability to talk to one another. And because of that, they never find out who they are, because how do I find out who I am? I bounce myself, my thoughts, my ideas off of you.
Right.
When they come back to me, then I find out something about myself. And the same happens in reverse. You find out about yourself by bouncing something of yourself off of me.
Right.
So in that way, we go back and forth and we increase one another in knowledge.
Right.
It can't be done solo.
Yes, sir.
It has to be done in the company of one another.
Absolutely. So that brings me to my next point. The formula in the Scientology discourse, KRC, with knowledge, responsibility, and this other the C.
Control.
Control.
Yeah, now that's different than ARC.
Right.
A lot of people know about ARC, affinity. The R is
reality.
And the C in this instance is communication.
Okay.
That's ARC.
I see.
But there's another triangle, KRC, knowledge, responsibility, and control.
I see.
They're related, but they're not the same.
Right. Okay. Yes, sir. So I remember you had mentioned to us once before that your responsibility is in proportion to your knowledge, and then you have the control over. When you get a handle on responsibility and knowledge, then you get to assume control. And it's like with yourself, being, learned in so many different areas. How do you manage like the responsibility of the things that you know about? Or should I rephrase that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't. Again, I mean, you're making certain assumptions. First of all, you're
Okay.
assuming that I know anything.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I'm not quite sure I know anything at
Oh
all.
wow. Yes, sir.
But assuming that I might know something or other, then the responsibility comes with a decision that you make about what you know. See, that's actually what responsibility is. A person takes responsibility, they take a decision, they make a decision.
Okay.
That's what irresponsibility means, is the lack of the ability to make a decision. But what gives you the ability to make a decision is knowledge. So that's why knowledge has to be there. Then with that body of knowledge, what are you going to do with it?
Right.
And when you decide what you're going to do with it, you are determining the level of responsibility that you're taking or assuming.
Yes, sir.
Well, suppose the level of responsibility that you take only requires half of the knowledge that you acquired. Well, then what that means is over time, the knowledge that you don't really need to uphold the portion of the responsibility that you agree to, you'll lose that knowledge.
Wow.
Now, with that knowledge and responsibility, now comes the control. You get the amount of control that you need in order to discharge the responsibility that you accept for what you know. So now, here's the rub. A lot of times people will go out and get a ton of knowledge,
Right.
but where do they come up short? They never make a decision to do anything with the knowledge that they have. So they make a decision to be irresponsible,
Right.
in other words. So then you come back 2 months later and ask them about all the subject matters that they studied. They can't remember a doggone thing. Why? Because they didn't take any responsibility for it. So therefore, the knowledge that they once had goes to zero. It goes down to the level of the responsibility that they had.
Yes, sir.
And then commensurate with that, they also have no control over anything.
Yes, sir.
The pure definition of a slave. No knowledge, no responsibility, no control.
Wow. Wow. So we know from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they're all pretty much hypnotized in a sleep-like state. What is the best way you feel in this day and age with so much technology, like we hear in the lessons, with modern technology, we're getting closer to getting out of the chains that we've been under. How is the best way we can actually facilitate our liberation in this day and age?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think that's what life is all about. Try to figure that out. I mean, to think that there's some set formula, this is how you have to do it.
Right.
I mean, I notice on social media, everybody wants to tell everybody what to do. You know, everybody gains a little bit of knowledge about something. Now I want to get up on a rostrum and preach to the whole world, you know, what to do. No, that's why you need dialogue. So, I mean, I think what we're doing, this podcast, we're naming it Original Dialogue. And that's what we have to return to. There is no such thing as a know-it-all person. You know, that's why I resist some of your flattery, Brother Mark.
Yes, sir.
You know, some of what you say is true, but see, there's a tendency to be carried away by flattery and be carried away by the things that you do know, and you overlook a ton of things that you have no knowledge of at all.
Yes, sir.
And so the best way, I think, is to just get in dialogue with other people and stop this notion that somehow you have to be some kind of an expert, you have to have a degree, you have to have gone to this college or school, or you have to be a part of this family or this group or this, that. No, you just have to be a human being. You know, and every human being I ever met is intelligent.
Yes, sir.
And every human being, unless they have some birth defect, can speak or communicate in some way.
Right.
And that's all you need.
Yes, sir.
Just the ability to think, the ability to communicate with other human beings. And then when we have a problem in common together, we just communicate about that problem. And through that dialogue, we'll come up with the solution.
Yes, sir.
But to sit back and think that some savior is going to come and solve all the problems and carry us into heaven on a basket of flowery ease, I mean, that's just slave time thinking. That's just slave mentality.
How do we begin to break people out of the trance then, to get them to want to engage with one another in communication? Because I work on a college campus and I'm engaged with the youth, and sometimes it's so hard to reach out to them. They got headphones in, they're on the phone, and it's so hard to break that connection with the technology. So how can we best facilitate dialogue with one another? Well,
I mean, the first thing that I would say to anybody that's really serious about doing what you said,
yes, sir,
turn the television off. If you can't do that, then you just forget it.
Right.
Because the greatest mind control mechanism in the world today is called television. And all of the other devices like television. That's mind control.
Yes,
your cell phone is a mind control device.
Wow.
Yes, it works as a telephone too.
Right.
I know that. It does work as a telephone. You can call mama if you want to. But the primary function of a cell phone, the primary function of television, the primary function of all these electronics is to electronically entrain the human consciousness, the human brainwave mechanism, and control human behavior. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught that the war of Armageddon is the war for the minds of men.
Yes, sir.
But the stakes of the war are the lives of men. So this trance-like state that you find most of humanity in is a result of the deliberate manipulation of their minds, often through the use of electronic devices. I mean, the brain itself operates on the basis of electricity. So therefore, it can be influenced by electronics.
Wow.
And that's the environment that we live in. So turn the doggone TV set off.
Yes, sir.
What you will do is go through a 2-week withdrawal. After about 2 weeks, you will have a strange sensation. And the strange sensation that you will have in your head is the first inkling of your own self-consciousness. You actually become aware of yourself being aware again, as opposed to being dominated by some electronic device that you yourself paid for and put in your house that controls you, your wife, your children, and everybody else.
Wow.
Even when you think you're not paying attention to it, you are.
Wow.
And it's certainly paying attention to you because of all of the surveillance hardware that's built into these electronic devices nowadays.
Right.
So again, people want to ignore the obvious. You're being controlled electronically. Why don't you turn the doggone thing off? And if you can't do it, then that's ultimate proof that you are not in control of yourself.
Wow.
If you are in control of your own mind, you should have the ability to change it.
That's it.
See if you can do that.
That's it.
If you can't change your mind about something, then somebody else controls your mind. Why don't you find out who that is?
Right.
And ask their permission to let you think a different way.
Wow. That's it. Heavy, 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 heavy.
See, it's the same old thing, KRC.
Yes,
See, you want to control your own mind, gain knowledge of it. Then make a decision about controlling it or not. See if you can be responsible for your own thoughts.
Right.
But you go to the barber shop, go to the beauty shop. What do people talk about? They talk about what was on television last night.
Right. There's no original thought.
They act like they are great sports enthusiasts. No, you just memorize what the sports commentator said on ESPN last night. Now you come in the barber shop, all you did was you memorize what they said because you had the TV set on all last night and you got brainwashed over 12 hours while you were asleep.
Yes, sir.
And you came in with all this data that somebody pumped into your head.
Wow.
There's not an original thought in the whole heap of useless data. That sounds harsh, doesn't it? but that's the description of so many people today.
Yes, absolutely.
Heads packed with data that comes in from the outside that somebody else decided that it's time for you to know that.
Wow. Kind of reminds me of what Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan said about the person that prescribes the diameter of your thought controls the circumference of your activity.
Exactly.
And so it's like a set limit of words on television. I remember you taught us about before. A set limit of words denote a set number of ideas, and so it's like people are constantly in a trap, and then we come around them talking about something from the teachings of the messenger. We're viewed as like, whoa, what is this? You know, what are you talking about? I never heard anything like that before.
Yeah. I mean, I think we ought to touch on Okay, so I think those are all the questions and comments. Let me scroll again and see. I missed the importance of words. See, a lot of the Nation of Islam people go to the Church of Scientology, they learn to study tech and the clear words and all that. That's great. But when I joined the Nation of Islam, we didn't use the term word clearing, but we were told that other than the Messenger's books, there were 3 books that we absolutely had to have. We had to have the Bible, we had to have the Holy Quran, and we had to have the dictionary. And when we studied the lessons, we had to clear every single word in the lessons. Again, we didn't use the term clear.
Right.
But that's what we were doing. We were clearing words.
Right.
You see, so that technology that has been polished and refined by the Church of Scientology is not a new technology to the Nation of Islam.
Right.
We did that. Well, I mean, I came in 1968. We were doing it then.
Wow.
Okay, and of course, what did Master Fard Muhammad do when he was among us? He started a literacy class.
Right. Wow.
A reading class.
Yes, sir.
Because he was trying to teach illiterate people. Well, to get to your point, since World War II, especially, if you want to put a date on it, there was the development of something called Standard English, which includes only 600 words.
Wow.
That's why when you watch television, you never have to have a dictionary on your lap to look anything up, because they're never going to use a word that you haven't heard before. Same with radio, same with most newspapers. They use the same 600 words. So you never have to look anything up. It also means you're not learning anything new.
Wow.
You see, so in the English language, every 10 years they count the words. So the last I remember in the English language, there was 610,000 words.
Wow.
So the average person, according to our lessons again, only knows 600 words.
Yes, sir.
So you only have 1,000th, which would be what? 1/10 of 1%
Wow.
of the total number of words in the English language. Yet you think, with that limited amount of thinking power, 1/10 of 1%, that you are going to escape the enslavement of the King's English, I guess the Queen's English,
Yes, sir.
that has enslaved you since 1555. I mean, even the example of Malcolm X should put us in the right direction.
Yes, sir.
He didn't have nothing else to do in prison but read the dictionary.
Right on.
So he did.
Yes, sir.
And because he read the dictionary and increased his vocabulary, every word that he added to his vocabulary is the power of thinking. Each word gives you a measure of the power of your thinking. A person with 600 words in their vocabulary, meaning that people use words that they don't understand. I'm not counting that.
Right.
I mean the words that you actually understand, the true meaning of.
Yes.
I don't mean the words you twist up and make into whatever you want it to mean. I mean the words that you actually could define correctly. Because the word had a meaning before you were born into the world.
Wow.
So when you catch up to the true meaning of the word and put it in your brain and learn to think with it, how in the world are you going to compete with somebody that has mastered 6,000 words or 600,000 words?
Right.
You just can't do it. You don't have the thinking power to think your way out of the dilemma that they have put you in. You see, so therefore we begin with the words. We begin with the definition of words and the use of words. But again, looking up a word in the dictionary but never using it in a conversation is useless and a waste of time.
Yes, sir.
When do people ever get a chance to talk? We already talked about the dominance of the technology that won't allow human beings to talk.
Right.
People worried about artificial intelligence. Will artificial intelligence replace human intelligence? It already has.
Yes, sir.
Here we live in the age of information. Well, then where do we get all these dumb people that don't know nothing about nothing? Walking around with a smartphone, dumb as hell.
Yes, sir.
You see, though, that's paradoxical. How could both be true? This is the age of information. It is.
Yes, sir.
You can look up anything that you want to know and get the answer instantly.
Right.
But if you take the human factor out of it, it's all meaninless. It's all meaningless data. Because what is the human factor? The human factor is the ability to think.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what a human being does. Think. So if you can't think, or you forget to think, because you're trying to remember, you see, then it's all useless.
Right, yes, sir. All right, so realizing that we're running out of juice on the camera, but your Instagram feed will still be going on.
Yeah, okay. You can't plug the camera in? See, we're learning as we go. Don't think we know what we're doing here.
We can't. We may have to break for a commercial break.
A commercial break? Okay. So what, you can plug that in, or?
Oh, I have a replacement battery, but we'll just go for about 5 more minutes, though.
Okay.
So what you just said, I mean, you just kind of got into like a discourse of like a linguist. We know you to be a minister, physician, artist, nutritionist, economist, teacher, Renaissance man in many instances.
So you say?
Yes, sir. How did you make the decision yourself just to take the responsibility? What compelled you to take that responsibility?
Responsibility for what?
To be.
I don't ever remember taking a decision to be. Actually, I never even thought about what you just said.
Okay.
The responsibility to be, I think, yeah, that gets to the very root of existence.
Yes, sir.
But I don't know. I mean, that you sort of stumped me with that question.
Gosh.
The responsibility to be?
Yes, sir.
No, now, I've always been a very responsible person. So maybe that's why I can't remember when I made the first decision to be responsible. Because I've always been responsible for myself.
Yes, sir.
As early as 3 years old, I can remember things I did when I was 3 years old. And when I think back on it, I was being responsible for myself.
Yes, sir.
For example, if you talk to my mother, she always tells the story about the time when I wanted to go visit my grandparents. And they lived several blocks away on the other side of town. I was 3 years old. Well, nobody had time to take me to visit my grandparents.
Right.
So I pestered them all morning long. So eventually, I think it was my father, he said, well, why don't you just go? So a little time passed and everybody looked around. Where's Mookie? And then somebody remembered, well, you told him to go. And so they ran,
Yes, sir.
they ran me down, and I was about a half a block from my grandparents' house at that time.
Wow.
So I was 3 years old. So nobody thought I could actually find my way all the way to where they lived. But I never even thought about it. It wasn't like I thought, well, I wonder if I do know how to go there. I just went. So I think that's my attitude towards life. I don't even think about it. Like make a conscious decision to do this or that. No, I just do what's natural.
Yes, sir.
Maybe that's why I accepted the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's just a natural way of life. I'm just being myself.
Yes, sir.
I don't think about it. I mean, if you stop me to think about it, I can think about it, but I really usually don't.
Yes, sir.
I think sometimes people are too self-conscious. That's what inhibits them. It paralyzes them. Because when you're self-conscious, then what are you worried about? You're worried about how you appear to other people. And you actually think you know what other people would think of you if you said what you're thinking. So then you bite your tongue and don't say it because you think you know what they would think if you said what you're thinking.
Wow. Yes, sir.
See, so you inhibit yourself.
Yes, sir.
So anyhow, I don't think I answered your question. I apologize. I didn't really answer your question.
Right. Yes, sir. So I think that about wraps it up for the footage that we're shooting over here on the A-roll.
Okay.
We should have the B-roll footage going there on Instagram. Was there anything you wanted to close out with?
Well, so we got people online here.
Any questions?
So now this is going to stay on for 24 hours. I think that's the way it works.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe we could continue with a little bit more. And then, of course, people here, they actually have the ability to make a comment or ask a question. So if you do that, if you want to do that, then you can do that. But did you have anything else you wanted to handle, or is that it?
All right. Now I just wanted a closing statement at this point.
A closing statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's pressure.
Oh, God.
Well, anyhow, so this is an experiment, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So we're just experimenting, fooling around, see what we can do.
That's not the technology.
Now where's this going to be posted? The actual
So the
podcast?
A-roll footage is going to be on YouTube.
Going to be on YouTube.
On a separate channel that's going to be the Original Dialogue or Power Study Podcast. And then you also have a personal YouTube channel we can upload it to as well.
Yeah.
So that's where it's going to appear within the next week.
Yeah. So I don't know about a closing statement, but I mean, I think this is the right thing to do.
Right.
You see, the key to everything is communication.
Yes, sir.
So you talk about responsibility. Well, what's the responsibility of a person like me? If half the things that you said about me are true, then what's the level of my responsibility?
Mm.
Well, my responsibility would be to communicate those things to people who haven't had my experience, who haven't had my exposure in life, and perhaps who don't have the ability to communicate.
Right.
Everybody knows something, but do they have the ability to communicate clearly what they know? So again, sometimes it's just a matter of being an example. Be an example of somebody who communicates. Be an example of somebody who knows something and doesn't keep it as a secret, but shares with other people.
Yes, sir.
Someone who acknowledges that other people know something too. See, it always bothered me, that as I was going through life trying to acquire knowledge about this, that is kind of like the Wizard of Oz. It's been a facade of power since 1914. That's just a facade. And they've kept up a good facade. And then we've just been dumb enough to fall for it, thinking that people who don't have power have power. They haven't had no power or real authority since 1914. I mean, the sad thing about it is, look what happened in 1914. Somebody killed the Archduke Ferdinand in Serbia and started World War I, and then they rounded up all the black farm boys from down south, including my grandfather, trained them in the army, took them to France, and they were shooting Germans and white people over in France. But then something happened to them. By the time they got back here to the United States, you could still lynch them in Alabama. Now how in the world is this black guy shooting Germans through the head in France and Germany? Same thing happened in World War II. Here you got these black guys with guns, all the most modern weapons known to man, shooting people all over the world, but come back to Alabama and get lynched by a redneck cracker. Now you tell me that ain't crazy as hell. But what does it show? It shows the power of the slave mentality. You can kill everybody in the world but your slave master. And your slave master ain't got a dime. I mean, I just put up a post this morning. The IMF is broke, bankrupt. The IMF is in court, in international court around the world. The total amount that the IMF is in Dutch for is $8.6 trillion. They ain't got a dime. Trump and the Secretary of Treasury, Mnuchin, whatever his name is, going around the world trying to beg the Japanese for some money. They didn't get no money. That's what the whole deal in Korea was about. They're trying to get some money. They ain't got no money. You're going to find out about it later. When this currency reset takes place. So you ask the question, when the white man's power will be broken. Well, why is he getting run out of Syria? If he got power, how come he don't want him to stay there? No, he's getting kicked out. How come he's getting kicked out of Korea, pulling the troops out of Korea, pulling the troops out of Japan, talking about pulling the troops out of Germany, getting kicked out of Turkey? How about when the white man's power is going to be broken? What are you talking about? Just open your eyes. He ain't got no power. He ain't got no power to rule you. Look at you, out of control. He used to have you under perfect control. You out of control. Dumb as you are, crazy as you are. He can't even control you. Can't even get you to act right. You know about when his power is going to be broken. No, his power is already broken, been broken. It's just that you haven't awoken to the fact that you're in power of yourself if you want to be. So now if you want to put yourself under a broken power, well, help yourself. Help yourself. But if you look around, you see he can't even control his borders. Look at poor Mr. Trump. He's trying to control the borders. The Mexicans won't stop coming. The Guatemalans won't stop coming. The Hondurans, the Panamanians, everybody coming and they trying to stop them at the border. Look at the Europeans. Same thing. They killed Gaddafi. They didn't know Gaddafi was holding back the blacks. Gaddafi warned them in Green Square. He had it, a big placard. I saw it with my own eyes. He said the blacks will rule the world. They didn't believe him. They didn't believe him. So they killed him just to steal his gold and silver, get control of the oil. They killed him. They say they killed him. Some people say he got away. But they say they killed him. Now, they can't stop the Africans, the black Africans coming up out of Africa. It comes through Libya because there's no government there. There's no control there. So they come from all over Africa, go through Libya, get on boats, go to Italy, Spain, France. They're taking over France, taking over England. Europe used to be white. You know what? The physical break of the white man. Go to Europe. Have you ever been to London? London's black. Paris is black. Germany's black. Italy's black. White people are dying. They're a dying race. Why are you beating up on white people, some of you? You know what I'm beating up on? Why are you beating up on a dead man? He's dying. He's on his deathbed. You see him going through his agony of death. Why won't you have some pity on him and just leave him alone? Let him die in peace. And why don't you get busy and build your own world? Because you're not dying unless you want to. Your world is just getting started. You had a vacuum of 6,000 years, but that's, like I say, that's been over 104 years now. So people wondering about you, what's wrong with you? You've been free to go on your own for 104 years and you hardly even getting started. You still worrying about white people not liking you. You mad because they still don't like you. After all you've done, they still don't like me. Of course they don't like you. Because you're going to be here and they're not. It's just as simple as that. So when the white man's rule will be physically broken. He ain't got no money. His military is second rate. The Chinese got weapons that'll sink every aircraft carrier he got in the fleet. That's why all the aircraft carriers, they brought them back to Norfolk. They leave them out there in the South China Sea. China sink every last one of them. And not to mention the Russian weapons. That's why they out of Syria. The Russians ran them out of there. Just like the Prophet Muhammad's hadith that the Muslims would be, in the last days, the Muslims would be aided by the Russians, the Christians. The Russians are the Christians of planet Earth. A lot of Muslims in Russia too, but it's the most Christian nation on earth. And so upholding the principles of Christianity, they come to the aid of the Muslims in the Middle East. They see the satanic Zionists in Israel, so the satanic Zionists that control American foreign policy, or who did control it. They might not be in control anymore. So the Christians did the Good Samaritan thing. The Russian Christians did the Good Samaritan thing, just as Prophet Muhammad said they would. So they came to the aid of the Muslims with their modern, ultra superior weapons and just drove Israel and America and NATO out of Syria, out of Iraq. And now they're at the doors of Israel. They're getting ready to have a regime change in Israel. You'll see. They're not going to be there long. You can't have no Zionist, racist state called Israel. How you going to have that? For Jews only. How you going to have that? No, the Jews can be in the Middle East like they have always been. They never were ran out of the Middle East. They've always been there. So they can sit there and live with everybody else, like everybody else, but they ain't better than everybody else. He said, we can't have that, no white supremacy. That's over. We can't have no Jewish supremacy, Muslim supremacy, black supremacy. Oh, that's over. So anybody trying to uphold that kind of stuff is out of luck today. That just doesn't work. You can't make that work. It never was right to begin with, but you did have a time, you did have permission to do that But that time is long since over. Okay, so then it's our responsibility to recognize that, and don't worry about them dying. Let them die. They have a right to die. Why you want to keep them here to take care of you? Why don't you take care of yourself like you used to before they were here? You know, we know the teachings. So their rule has been finished. What about the 3 dark years that will meet us after the minister departs? Give insight. You're in the 3 dark years now. You've been in 40 years of darkness already. What are you talking about? You're already in the dark. Actually, the light's getting ready to come on. The light is on now. Don't you see it? You've been in the dark. What about the dark hour? Will there be no dark hour of you truly? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Queen Rashida, don't worry about the dark hour. There will be no dark hour for you if you are truly free. Yeah, see, that's like the Bible says there were 2 different types of virgins. Remember? There were the wise ones and there were the foolish ones. So then the bridegroom, yeah, you're right, came at midnight, which was dark. But see, the wise virgins, they had oil in their lamps, so that didn't matter that it was dark. It was dark, yeah. Can't deny that it was dark, but they had light. See, that's the thing. It could be dark, but if you have light, it's not dark for you. But if it's dark and you don't have light, then yeah, you're in the dark. And so it said that the 5 foolish virgins at midnight, they were out trying to search for some oil to put in their lamps. So maybe it did take them about 3 years to find some oil to put in their lamps. Now, whether they survived that long, I don't know. So now, the darkness, you see, is intense right now. The United Nations is broken. Probably Trump will walk out of the United Nations and you will see it collapse. NATO is collapsed. The European Union, as a Freudian slip, if there ever was one. The European Union is collapsed. The Central Bank of Europe is collapsed. The Federal Reserve Bank of America is collapsed and bankrupt. It's doubtful whether there's any gold in Fort Knox. So how could there possibly be a recovery? The American military is antiquated, using antiquated weapons. Probably take about 20, 30 years to catch up to the Russians. What do you want to, but you don't have any money to finance a military revival. So how could you possibly hold on to a kingdom? You see, so Mr. Trump has a very difficult job to explain these things to the dumbed down American people who are still living back in the 1950s and 60s when America ruled the world. And they have you so convinced of that that you haven't kept up to date with the fact that that's no longer true. And hasn't been true for a very, very long time. You see, so you talk about the dark hour, you're in the dark hour. And if you have light in your lamp, then you can see. And it's not dark for you. But if you don't have a lamp, then you're in the dark and you don't see. And you're in trouble. And the trouble is going to get worse for you till you get some light.